So recently I made a massive life decision and I decided to quit my job. I was working in construction management on renewable energy projects and I was getting paid super well. I was getting paid around 180k a year, and on top of that, I'd get 25% uplift when I was working on projects. It was pretty cruisy, not that stressful, and I actually really enjoyed the work. Particularly in renewable energy in Australia, there's a massive pipeline of work, tons of opportunity, tons of projects coming up, and company I worked at particularly had a huge pipeline, and I definitely could have kept climbing the corporate ladder. But I didn't. Instead, I made what feels like a huge life decision and decided to quit. So I'm a super risk-averse person, and I found the decision to quit personally relatively terrifying, but I know other people wouldn't feel the same way. For me, what really pushed me over the edge is I wanted to pursue my business. I wanted to build something on my own, and every time I felt like I was coming close to being able to do so, I would come up with some excuse, some reason why I couldn't do it now, why I had to wait a little bit. And my wife, she just continually pushed me. Every excuse I came up with, she shut down, and now here we are. So making this video for people who are in a similar position, and I know with my job, with my courses, I deal with a lot of people in the construction industry who want to take the next step into entrepreneurship. So I'm going to explain the reasons that motivated me, that convinced me that it was the right decision to do. So hopefully, if you're in a similar position, you might find them useful. So reason number one was creative freedom. Now, as a kid, I used to love playing Age of Empires. I used to love building your base, strategizing how you were going to play the game. I've found the experience of building a business incredibly similar to playing Age of Empires. It's all about deciding how you're going to allocate your time, resources, what opportunities you're going to pursue, what steps you're going to take, and it feels like you're playing some big game. It's not about the money necessarily. It just feels like as an employee working for someone else, you never get the same creative freedom to experiment, to try new things, to pursue your ideas and make them a reality. Now, I'm saying this with some level of naive optimism with someone who's just started, but maybe future Tim will feel differently when I'm desperate to make a sale to get money, but that's future Tim's problem. Reason number two was self-development. I personally hate it when you see job adverts saying that you need 5 years of experience. Through my working career, I'm fully convinced of the idea that anybody can learn anything in 6 months. But the only way to learn is by doing. All my growth in life, all my experiences where I felt like I've developed a lot has been through taking action. Taking a course on marketing is completely different to having to try and sell a product. So I know by jumping into the deep end, trying something, trying to build a business, I'm going to learn way more in the next 6 months than I'm going to learn by spending another 6 months working in my job. Reason number three is the financial reality. So I had a great salary, but the reality is life is super expensive. The average house in Australia is about 8 times income, and burgers now cost like $30 when you go out to get a meal. I'm personally not chasing super yachts and Lamborghinis, but I want to reach a level of financial freedom where I never have to worry about eating out, going on holidays, or spending money. So I think there's really two paths to building wealth like this. First one is climbing the corporate ladder and getting to the top of a big company. Second one is through ownership and building a business. Now, path number one, I think, is super difficult. It's political, it's competitive, and ultimately very challenging to do, to get to the top of a big company. The other option is to build and own a business, which I think superficially sounds riskier, but I think your actual chances of success are much higher. So Cody Sanchez and Alex Hormozy talk about this a lot in their videos, but it sort of changed the way I thought about money and how to build wealth. And the core premise of what they say is that ownership is what makes you wealthy, not an income. So you really get wealthy by building a business that's valuable. Say, for example, you have a business and you add 100K of profit to that business in a year. Because you've built something that now earns $100,000 extra, in reality, you've added $400,000 of value to the business. But the idea is you could then sell that business at a 4 times multiple of earnings. Now, this assumes a few things. So it assumes that your business is stable, it can run without you, and this income is consistent and predictable. But the premise is the same. If you build an asset that produces income, you're actually very quickly building wealth. And the statistics back this. So the average self-employed person is worth around 4 times the average employee. And then reason number 4 is regret. Now, last year I turned 30 and it was a bit of a shock to me. I looked back at what I'd done and asked myself the question, would 18-year-old Tim have been proud of this? And truthfully, the answer is probably not. Now, I'm not looking back at my life super disappointed, but it's just this idea that when you're younger, you have this naive optimism, you think you're going to go and do all this incredible stuff, and it just feels like over time, you don't ever decide not to do it. You just slowly get stuck in your ways, keep pursuing the same things, and all these opportunities slowly dissipate and you stop thinking about them. And then all of a sudden you realize none of them have eventuated and you don't really understand why. I don't want to look back and realize I settled by default. Sure, maybe I'll hate the stress of having a business, but then it'll be a choice to go back and get a job. So those are my 4 main drivers for wanting to go out on my own and have a crack at building a business. But there's also been one other surprising benefit that I wouldn't have originally thought about, and it's the connections I've met. So the amount of people who've reached out to me, told me they want to do something similar, or have connected with people who are doing something similar, definitely led to a range of interesting conversations, opportunities, and friendships. So I know I'm in a unique position. This is the right time for me to do it. I don't have kids. I don't have much financial pressure. I've got some solid savings, and I've also already got 7 years of experience on projects. So I know I could go back and get a job pretty easily if I wanted to. And it ultimately came down to me thinking about what's the worst thing that can happen and what's the best thing that can happen. Worst case, I go back and get a job. Best case, I build something valuable that I'm proud of. So hopefully some of those motivations work for you too. And I hope I'm not back here in 6 months' time making a video on why moving back to a salaried job was the best decision I ever made.